Shadow of the Beast. Developed by Reflections Interactive and published by Psygnosis. Let me just get this out of the way. I know that this game has a rabid cult-like status among some gamers, particularly European gamers or fans of European games. But for the record, I want to be perfectly clear with you and honest. I hate this game. Okay, maybe that's not 100% fair, but I absolutely hated it as a kid, and it would often make me seethe with unbridled anger and rage, but I kept playing it. I kept playing it? Well, yes, the answer is an obvious one. I was a child, and most of us had to make do with the games we had. How many awful games did we try to convince ourselves we liked? Don't lie, be honest with yourselves. But upon writing this, I've been sat here thinking about it, and well, no, that's not the only reason I continued to drive myself mad by playing it. That's not the only reason at all. Firstly, I've always loved the look of this game, and the world that Reflections created. Even the box art itself caught my attention as a wee lad. Even today, when I'm browsing that shelf behind me, my eyes are always drawn to the box. Its artwork just brings upon mental images of a surreal alien landscape full of danger. Roger Dean is the man behind this art, and would go on to create artwork for future entries in the series, as well as many other video game titles. It's really nice work, and you should absolutely go and check it out. The locations you visit are vast, and more importantly, feel old. And due to your character being relatively small compared to many enemies you face, you also end up feeling very small and insignificant in this massive world, and thus, you feel vulnerable. Despite the game world feeling so large and purposely empty in places, it's still brimming with atmosphere. The world is just so bizarre most of the time, and there's even a blimp amongst the clouds? A fucking blimp? As a child, I'd often wonder, who's in the blimp? Can they see me? Are they merely observing? Or is my struggle so insignificant to them that they don't even care? Maybe that last one I thought was an adult, but bear with me. It is surprisingly wonderful world building, and does so without bombarding the player with walls upon walls of text. It's all generated so subtly, clearly doing the job well, otherwise I wouldn't still remember all of that to this day. Now, there is some text in the form of these great segments that introduce new locations. I mean, there is still some flavor text, but like most games of the time, that's all kept within the game's manual itself, so let's have a little look and have a read, shall we? Many years ago on a moonless night, a small child was stolen away from his sleeping parents. His mysterious abductors carried him far across the land to the mighty temple necropolis, where the helpless child was given to the mages of darkness, warrior priests of the Beast Lord. Deep below the temple the child was carried, passing through a labyrinth of rooms and passages to the chambers of creation, where the evil mages worked their dark arts, creating strange creatures, plants, and traps to guard the Beast Lord's stronghold. For the child, they had a special purpose in mind. Secret potions concocted from the blood of rare creatures slowly transformed him into a hideous creature of incredible strength, agility, and power. Deep hypnosis erased all memory of his past life, as he became the warrior messenger of the beast. For many years, the boy served the temple. That's what it says, the temple. Then came the fateful day when his memories came flooding back, and he realized the truth about his past. A truth that now leads him on a trail of bloody revenge against his masters. You were that boy, that warrior. Now the time has come to destroy those who destroyed your life. Your vengeance can only be fulfilled in the shadow of the beast. Whoa. That sounds pretty awesome to me. Although I do have a slight issue with one thing. Incredible strength, agility, and power? Oh, I bloody wish. Anyway, getting back to the game, the creatures are creative, monstrous, and in some cases, quite unsettling. For example, the massive ghost ship of death that appears and can one-shot you. Sure, it's nothing too creepy by today's standards, but for little old Matticus Finch, yeah, that shit was horrifying. It's almost like being trapped in some horrible nightmare, complete with some serious dream logic that we will get to later. And throughout the years, the Mega Drive has gotten a lot of flack in the audio department, which I've never thought was particularly fair, as there are plenty of folks out there that have gotten some cracking music out of the machine. Plus, I actually feel that grungy and filthy music can benefit certain games such as Splatterhouse 2. And Shadow of the Beast is absolutely no exception. It perfectly complements the visuals and adds to the overall atmosphere, and I feel it's at its best prior to entering a location. The image, the text, and the music just go together so well to create an unsettling tone. And it's around this time you might be asking yourself, how can Matticus say he hates this game? He's just rambled on and on and on about how much he likes the game world, the sound, the music, everything. Well, you see, you're missing a key ingredient there. Something that's truly important for any video game: the gameplay itself. And I have to say, upon further inspection, I detest how this plays. It controls miserably. But again, we have to look at this a little closer. The gameplay of Shadow of the Beast at first appears as that of any other action platformer made during the era. However, at first it seemed to me as though there was a key difference that I quite liked. The game initially seemed as though it was somewhat open world. Alas, that's not really the case. While you can choose to go in either direction within the starting field, a field by the way that acts almost like a very dangerous hub, the progression is still linear, but because of this nothing is signposted, which means you need to fully explore your surroundings, which is a positive and a negative. Positive because you get to explore this awesome world some more. Why negative? Well, because everything alive wants to murder you as quickly as possible. 12 hit points might seem generous, but I can assure you, it is not. And yeah, you will be dying quite a bit because this game is really hard. And this is despite most enemies taking one hit to dispatch. If you don't time hits correctly, you'll deplete your health in seconds. And that's not even taking into account the enemies that move that you cannot damage. Altogether, this might not have been too much of an issue if it wasn't for one simple, tiny, incy-bincy little thing. You have no extra lives, no continues, no passwords, nothing. This was, and still is, a deal breaker for me, as it always just feels like the difficulty is there solely to stretch out and enhance the fucking length of the game artificially. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I don't mind difficulty. Yeah, I am all for challenge. But when the challenge is there solely to do this, I just switch off. I never liked it, and I never will. Maybe some of you are going to argue that roguelike games do that, but the difference there is that roguelike games are built around that mechanic. They take that into consideration. That moment you just scraped through before, you might not be so lucky next time. Some people like that, and you know what? More power to you, honestly. I'm glad you enjoy it. I wish I did. But this just isn't for me, and I don't enjoy the gameplay as a whole. It's surprisingly boring, actually. Which might sound strange considering how well the rest of the game was designed. It's just rather slow and plodding in areas. And for me, a lot of the challenge comes from how sluggish he not only turns around, but also crouches. And that's why I'm hit a lot of the time. He also has rather naff hand-to-hand attacks that need to be timed perfectly so that you don't take any damage. The controls just feel like they're covered in Marmite. You do acquire some form of projectile whilst in the desolate land under the tree, after you have to either punch or jump kick this bobbing orb. It's very weird, which is something that takes far too long, by the way. The attack itself though is really cool. You're basically firing out a Hadouken. It's great, I love it. This power-up is needed to defeat the ghost ship, but once you defeat the ship, the power-up just disappears. You lose it immediately, and it's gone forever. You never get it back again. It's so cruel. And while it fits the overall feel of the game world, that doesn't make it all that fun. And this game is cruel from the very beginning, by the way. When you descend that staircase under the tree and start moving to the right, the banisters themselves launch a fireball at you. The banisters launch a fireball. You know what? Actually, you know what? I've got a better example. Oh, look, a gap. Well, I'm well versed in platformers, so I'll use that there jump button to hop on over. Whoops, you undershot it and died. Insta-kill spike death traps. Don't you just love them? I guess I'll wait until the very last second to... And I fell there and didn't jump because there is input delay. I'm gonna be real with you right now. This jump is impossible. It's a cruel joke from the developers. Why is it there? I know why. I get it. I get why it's there. Okay, yeah. It's to waste your time. It's to waste my time, your time, everyone's time, and artificially extend the length of the game just a little bit more. Unsurprisingly, when you can get past the difficulty, and by that I mean use a walkthrough and or save scum on an emulator, the game is very short. Because of course it is. Why am I surprised? Why am I so... I don't know why. Why am I allowing myself to be surprised? So, you know what? Let's just go through this as quickly as we can and suffer together, shall we? You start in the middle of an open field and can go either right or left. Going right leads to a dead end until the area to the left has been completed. So you do that, nearly die, enter a massive creepy place under a big old tree. You pick up a key that's for something, break a jumping orb being cared for by a very angry statue, gain a Hadouken, use it to blow up a giant evil ghost ship of pain and suffering and blood, and then immediately lose said power before you proceed to punch a lever that does something. Gain another key that also opens something else. Gain a power punch so that you can then punch a giant ant dragon creature thing, lose that power as well, and then climb out of a well back into the plains. Sorry, you know what? Wait, let's just stop for a second. I probably just made that sound far more exciting than it really is. So, here's an unedited version of me fighting the giant ant dragon monster creature. So having climbed out of the well you find earlier in the, let's call it the plains, it's now time to advance over to the right and enter a big old spooky castle. But not before having everything in the world try to kill you. And this, in particular, is where I used to die the most as a child. I'll admit there's a great variety of enemies and enemy types, but bloody hell it's a little bit too much sometimes. I was lucky as hell if I even made it through the door of the castle, and even if I did, I'd have about 2 or 3 hit points left and then just die immediately. And it's right back to the beginning of the game again. But before going into the castle, you need to run all the way to the right and grab this torch. Otherwise, the inside of the structure will be too dark to see anything, which, that makes some sense, I'll give them that. However, look, I mean, am I just going crazy, or did this torch just look like set dressing to you? It looks like it's part of the scenery, right? No, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just talking bollocks. After another awesome introductory sequence, the game suddenly gets a hell of a lot weirder. The castle is what you'd expect for the most part, but then you turn left, head up a ladder, and all of a sudden, with no fanfare, these cheeky bastards start flying across the screen and drop, like, bombs on you or something. But they're not, the thing is, like, they're not just flying across, like, with magic. They're on, like, these futuristic hover bikes. It's so weird, it's so odd. I mean, it looks like the Beast Lord, whatever his name is, has some advanced technology. This isn't even the strangest thing yet, so, like, strap yourselves in, let's just get through this castle as quickly as possible. So you enter the castle, avoid explosives, fight off headless and bleeding monsters, pick up a wrench, punch barrels thrown by Donkey Kong, avoid swords, axes, spiders and wankers hiding in the stones, pick up a plasma gun, power down an energy field, shoot down big old bullets or rockets or something, and then fight a giant 3-headed dragon, run to the right screen, and just suddenly you got a jetpack and you're flying through the negative zone. What the hell am I saying? If you manage to not die horribly during this section, you'll fight this HR Giga monstrosity, and then you're out of the castle, seemingly discarding your jetpack, because you're not going to need a jetpack and a plasma gun. Like, yes, why would you ever need that? But there's some of that bizarre dream logic I spoke of before. We entered the castle, fought some creatures on hoverbikes and other weird monsters, found ourselves in some kind of hell portal or pocket dimension, flying around and using a plasma rifle before we destroy the HR Puffnstuff monster, move off the screen, and then find ourselves just outside. There's not even a door. We're just outside again, in the plains. So, if there is a door, and we opened it, would we fall back into the negative zone? Would you like get sucked in? I mean, you know what? I'll tell you what. I've definitely had some weird dreams like this. But that means it is the home stretch, the castle graveyard. There are some health items hidden within these tombstones that you can replenish your health with after, losing it against the Puffnstuff monster. But this is the great thing. I love you for this. I love it. Some of them take hit points away from you. Don't you just you know what? Guys, I gotta admit, I love beginner's traps so much. Can't you tell? I love them so much. After a plethora of more creative creatures, you come to the final battle. A battle that will take place in the shadow of the beast. Oh god, I can't believe I can't believe I wrote that. I've made this sound more exciting than it is, because all you do is you run up to his disgusting looking foot, avoid the club that he just is smashing into the ground, punch him in the toenail X amount of times, and he just explodes, and there you go, you finished it. You know what, thinking about it, this doesn't make any sense. So, if he's the Beast Lord, I don't know if he's the Beast Lord, by the way, but if he's the Beast Lord, he's got all this technology inside his castle. Hoverbikes, explosives, guns, jetpacks, all that stuff, right? And then in the final battle, he just uses a wooden club. That's so lame. Is he even the titular Beast? I mean, I don't know, he definitely wasn't casting a shadow. I mean, congratulations. You have freed yourself from the shadow of the Beast. Where are the cameras? Where's Jeremy Beadle? Jeremy Beadle, come on. Where are you hiding? You hiding in the cupboard? No, what the fuck? This has to be a joke. This is the ending to this game. You know, thinking about it, actually, I'm glad. And I am so glad that I never completed this as a kid. After all of that struggle, after all of the trial and error gameplay, everything, we get this screen. Yes, I know games rarely had quote-unquote satisfying endings back in the era, but even Sonic the Hedgehog had a semblance of an ending that made me feel like I'd achieved something. If I'd gotten this screen as a kid, I'd probably have thrown myself out of my bedroom window, which, well, it wouldn't have really done anything since, we lived on the ground floor, and I probably would have fallen about 3 or 4 feet and just laid there face down in the dirt, screaming. See, taking all of that into consideration got me thinking. While it's true, many games didn't have deep, meaningful, satisfying quote-unquote endings back in the day, the fun was usually the ride leading up to that point. And despite all of the wonderful atmosphere the game generates and the great subtle world building, I just don't find it particularly fun to play. The journey isn't enjoyable. It's stressful and not in a good way. I've seen some defenders of this game that proclaim that the trial and error gameplay encourages exploration, and yeah, I can sort of see where they're coming from, but I just think it's not handled particularly well. How is cruelly killing the player instantaneously because they went the wrong direction, or God forbid tried to enter an area before getting an item hidden on the other side of the map, in any way encouraging? It's not fun, it's bordering fucking miserable. And this is coming from the guy that adores the Soulsborne genre of games. As a child, I hated it for that reason, but as an adult, I'm just more sad and disappointed than angry, since it does everything else so well besides the most important part, the gameplay itself. So you know what I did? And I'm not even ashamed to admit this, but I not only used a guide, a wonderful guide by the way, by user Hello Batman on GameFAQs, but I also used an invincibility cheat. I don't care. I really don't care. This game already took enough time for me that I will never get back. And yes, I'm sure I've angered some purists by doing this, because I didn't do it properly. And you know what, yeah, all I can say to that is, deal with it. I'm making a bold assumption here that there's one thing that some of you might have already commented, and that's that this is, in fact, an inferior port of the Amiga original, which, I admit, does have superior sound and music, as well as a better use of colour. And in this version, the plasma gun uses the sound effect of the pulse rifles from Aliens, which gives it a few more points, that's for sure. all around, it is a better game on paper. On paper. But I've never played it, and if it's even remotely as tough as the Mega Drive version, don't imagine I'd like it much. There was also a Super Nintendo version in the works, but that game never came out. There is, however, a version of the ROM circulating somewhere. The game received 2 sequels on the Amiga, while only the first of those 2 made its way to the Sega Mega Drive. And I actually remember being quite fond of it. I only rented it back in the day, I never owned it, but I did so numerous times, and let me just tell you this, if I rented a game as a kid numerous times, it means I really liked it. So maybe we'll take a look at that in the future. There was also a remake released in 2016 on the PlayStation 4, and I didn't play it. Mainly because the original left such a bitter taste in my mouth, but also because I just don't think it looks very good. It looks really, really generic, and I got a ton of games I want to play. And that was Shadow of the Beast, a game I hated as a child, but a game I'm now just sad and disappointed in as an adult. I give Shadow of the Beast 4 giant toenails out of 10. That's it. You can go now. I just go watch my other stuff.